What if I told you that Carl Jung identified 5 simple phrases that can immediately silence a toxic person trying to drain your energy? What if these responses are so psychologically effective that they can shift the entire dynamic of a conversation in your favor within seconds? Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." But here's what he didn't widely emphasize. Sometimes understanding alone is not enough. At times, you must protect your psychological space with precision. You're about to learn 5 responses that Jung himself would likely endorse. Responses that are firm yet composed, leaving manipulators, energy drainers, and toxic individuals with nothing to say. Here's the reality. Most people never use these phrases because they require something many lack: genuine self-respect. According to Jung, the greatest tragedy is not being criticized by others. It's allowing others to reduce your authentic self. These 5 responses don't just stop toxic behavior, they help you reclaim your power and compel others to confront their own psychological shadows. But be aware, once you master them, you won't see interactions the same way again. You'll recognize manipulation quickly. You'll spot projection from a distance. And most importantly, you'll stop accepting disrespect disguised as conversation. The real question isn't whether these responses work. Jung's psychological insights support their effectiveness. The real question is whether you're ready to use this level of psychological strength. Because once you step into this mindset, you won't return to being a passive participant. Stay with me. What you're about to learn won't just change how others treat you. It will change how you view yourself. Let's begin with the first response, what Jung might call the mirror of truth. Response 1. I'm not interested in this drama. Jung observed that drama often reflects projected psychological chaos. When someone tries to pull you into their emotional storm, they may be unconsciously attempting to manage their own internal conflict by transferring it onto you. What Jung understood, and many overlook, is that drama requires participation. It's a psychological exchange that needs 2 people. When you say, "I'm not interested in this drama," you're not simply declining involvement. You're reflecting their unconscious behavior back to them. Jung explained that those who create constant conflict often operate from what he called the inferior function, their least developed psychological aspect. They generate disorder because internal structure feels uncomfortable. Your calm refusal to engage forces them to face that reality. Timing matters. This response works best when delivered with what Jung would describe as conscious indifference. Not anger, not frustration, just clear disinterest. The moment you show emotional investment, you lose your position of strength. Imagine a colleague complaining about office politics for the 3rd time this week, trying to involve you in negativity. Most people either participate or attempt to shift the topic awkwardly. But when you calmly state, "I'm not interested in this drama," something shifts. The drama initiator experiences what Jung described as psychological deflation. Their expectation of engagement meets a firm boundary. This creates cognitive tension. They must consider why they are so invested in conflict while you remain steady. Jung said, "Your vision becomes clear when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." This response subtly invites them inward. Even if they resist, its strength lies in its simplicity. You are not criticizing or diagnosing their behavior. You are stating a boundary. Jung believed the most effective psychological interventions often appear straightforward. But here's the key. Your tone carries more weight than the words themselves. Authentic detachment is not passive aggression. When this phrase comes from self-preservation rather than punishment, it becomes highly effective. The impact is immediate. Those who seek drama expect defensiveness or explanation. When they receive none, their strategy weakens. They either escalate, revealing their intentions, or withdraw to protect their image. Jung noted that people unconsciously test boundaries to understand our psychological structure. When you consistently refuse drama, you communicate that your peace is not negotiable. Jung taught that individuation, becoming who you truly are, requires safeguarding your psychological space from unconscious projections. This response is not rude. It is intentional. It is choosing awareness over reaction. The next time someone attempts to involve you in unnecessary conflict, remember Jung's insight. You decide where your psychological energy goes. And sometimes the most powerful decision is simply saying, "I'm not interested in this drama." Response 2. That comment says more about you than me. Jung uncovered one of psychology's fundamental truths. What we criticize in others often reflects our own shadow. When someone attacks your character, they may be projecting unresolved aspects of themselves onto you. Jung wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." This principle works both ways. Their irritation often reveals their internal struggles, not your flaws. Jung described projection as an unconscious defense mechanism in which individuals disown parts of themselves by attributing those traits to others. When you respond with, "That comment says more about you than me," you initiate what he referred to as the return of projected content. This response is effective because it promotes immediate self-awareness. Projection only functions while it remains unconscious. Once recognized, it loses force. However, many people misuse this phrase by speaking from anger or defensiveness. Jung emphasized that awareness requires calm observation. When you deliver this line with genuine steadiness rather than emotional charge, you maintain what he called the transcendent function, the capacity to rise above psychological conflict. Picture someone criticizing your life decisions, labeling you irresponsible or selfish. Most people defend themselves or counterattack. But when you calmly reply, "That comment says more about you than me," you refuse to internalize their projection. Jung observed that individuals often struggle with the very qualities they condemn. The person accusing you of selfishness may feel guilt about their own behavior. The one questioning your responsibility may be confronting their own insecurities. Your response invites reflection. It shifts the exchange from accusation and defense to introspection. Jung also explained that the shadow contains not only negative traits but also strengths we have rejected. Sometimes people criticize your confidence because they have denied their own power. By calmly declining their projection, you may activate their awareness of this hidden potential. The effect is significant. Projection helps people manage internal tension. When you refuse to absorb it, they must face their own unresolved material. Timing is important. This response works best without added explanation. Over-explaining reduces its impact. The statement stands on its own. You are not being defensive. You are accurately identifying a psychological process Jung spent decades studying. Individuation requires clear perception of yourself and others. When someone projects onto you, they are revealing something about their inner world. Your response protects your integrity while acknowledging that reality. This is not about winning arguments. It is about maintaining awareness in the face of unconscious behavior. And sometimes the most grounded response is calmly reflecting projection back to its source. Response 3. You've crossed a line. I'm leaving. Jung believed healthy individuation depends on conscious boundaries, the ability to distinguish between self and other at a psychological level. When you say, "You've crossed a line, I'm leaving," you practice what he considered essential for mental well-being. Boundary violations occur when someone attempts to impose their unresolved content onto you through manipulation, disrespect, or coercion. Recognizing this is not optional, it is necessary. What makes this response powerful is that it combines clarity with action. Jung stressed that awareness without behavior lacks strength. By identifying the violation and immediately removing yourself, you demonstrate integrated awareness. The phrase, "You've crossed a line," brings unconscious behavior into focus. Many individuals test limits without conscious intent. Naming the behavior creates moral accountability. But the true impact lies in, "I'm leaving." Words without action carry little weight. Those who disregard boundaries often rely on empty threats. Your immediate departure shows that your limits are real, Jung said. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Part of that process involves protecting your authentic self from psychological intrusion. If someone violates your stated boundaries and you remain, you undermine your own development. This response works because it is direct and complete. There is no debate, no extended justification. Jung noted that those who ignore boundaries often benefit from prolonged discussion, as it provides further opportunities to manipulate. Your exit removes that opportunity. People reveal their character in how they respond to limits. Respectful individuals adjust. Toxic individuals escalate, confirming the necessity of your boundary. Consistent enforcement creates lasting change. When others learn that crossing your line results in your absence, they begin to adjust their behavior. But this only works if you follow through. Jung emphasized alignment between inner conviction and external action. Empty warnings weaken credibility and invite further violations. The strength of this approach lies in its clarity. You're not analyzing their motives or over-explaining your stance. Jung understood that too much explanation weakens authority. Your statement is direct, your action is firm, and the message is unmistakable. Remember, Carl Jung taught that individuation is not passive. It demands active involvement in shaping your psychological environment. Sometimes the strongest choice you can make is to remove yourself from situations that compromise your authentic self. This response is not about punishment. It is about protection. And at times, protecting your psyche means walking away. Response 4. I won't entertain any form of disrespect from you. Carl Jung identified self-respect as the cornerstone of individuation. Without it, genuine growth is impossible. When you say, I won't entertain any form of disrespect from you, you are establishing what Jung considered the basis of all healthy relationships: mutual dignity. According to Jung, disrespect often arises from what he called unconscious inflation, when a person's ego becomes so dominant that they stop recognizing others as separate and valuable individuals. By refusing this behavior, you create a psychological reality check. You compel them to face their inflated state. Here is what Jung understood that many overlook. The word entertain is essential. It suggests that disrespect is a performance seeking an audience. When you refuse to be that audience, the performance loses its purpose. Jung explained that many toxic behaviors are unconscious attempts to release inner tension through outer conflict. This response works on several psychological levels. First, it defines your worth as non-negotiable. Jung observed that people unconsciously test our self-value by pushing against our limits. When you consistently reject disrespect, you communicate something powerful about your internal relationship with yourself. Carl Jung said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But transformation requires mutual respect as its foundation. Without that base, interaction becomes contamination rather than growth. The strength of this statement lies in its clarity. You are not explaining what qualifies as disrespect or negotiating acceptable levels of poor treatment. Jung recognized that over-explanation signals doubt about your own standards. Your declaration stands as a firm fact about how you choose to exist in the world. According to Jung, disrespectful individuals often function from what he called the inferior function, their least developed psychological capacity. They may be intellectually advanced but emotionally immature. Your refusal to accept their behavior pushes them to confront these underdeveloped aspects. However, delivery matters. This response must come from what Jung described as integrated authority, not anger, but calm awareness of your worth. When you speak from a wounded ego, you invite further attack. When you speak from grounded self-respect, you command recognition. Consider this scenario. Someone interrupts you repeatedly, dismisses your views, or speaks in a condescending tone. Most people either tolerate the behavior or respond with similar disrespect. But when you clearly state your boundary, the psychological dynamic shifts. Carl Jung understood that respect functions like a psychological law. It must be offered to be received, and it must be upheld to be maintained. By refusing to entertain disrespect, you teach others how to engage with your authentic self rather than your accommodating persona. The impact goes beyond the immediate moment. Jung believed that when you consistently refuse disrespect, you model healthy individuation. You demonstrate that dignity can exist without aggression and strength without cruelty. This response also supports your own psychological growth. Jung taught that every time you accept disrespect, you reinforce unconscious beliefs about your value. Each time you reject it, you strengthen your connection to your authentic worth. Here is Jung's deeper insight. This boundary is not only about how others treat you, it reflects your relationship with yourself. When you refuse disrespect from others, you are less likely to engage in self-disrespect through negative self-talk or self-sabotage. The power of this response lies in its universality. It applies equally to family, co-workers, friends, and strangers. Jung believed that authentic individuals maintain consistent standards regardless of context. Your value does not shift based on opinions or your need for approval. Remember, Carl Jung emphasized that individuation requires what he called ethical confrontation, the willingness to face difficult truths about yourself and others. Sometimes the most ethical action is refusing to enable disrespect by accepting it. This is not about being demanding. It is about honoring the dignity Jung believed to be every human being's birthright. And at times, honoring that dignity requires clear and unwavering boundaries. Response 5. This conversation no longer serves me. Carl Jung explained that psychological energy follows what he called the principle of equivalence. Energy invested in one area must be withdrawn from another. When you say, "This conversation no longer serves me," you apply Jung's concept of psychic economy with precision. According to Jung, every interaction either supports your individuation or works against it. There is no neutral space. When discussions become repetitive, manipulative, or destructive, they interfere with your psychological development. Recognizing this drain reflects growing awareness. What makes this response effective is the word serves. Jung taught that healthy individuals approach relationships from mutual benefit, not one-sided sacrifice. By stating that the conversation no longer serves you, you practice what he described as conscious selfishness, the responsible prioritization of your psychological well-being. This phrase works because it is honest and emotionally neutral. You are not criticizing the other person's character or analyzing their motives. You are simply acknowledging that the interaction has become counterproductive. Jung saw this kind of clear assessment as a sign of maturity. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Part of that process requires consciously shaping your psychological environment. When conversations consistently drain your energy without offering insight, growth, or genuine connection, they obstruct your development. The psychological effect of this response is significant. Jung observed that many people assume others will continue engaging regardless of impact. When you withdraw based on personal well-being, you challenge that assumption and prompt reflection on the quality of the exchange. Timing, however, is essential. This response is most effective after you have attempted constructive engagement. Jung believed individuation requires responsibility for your role in relationships. When you have made sincere efforts and the interaction remains unproductive, stepping away becomes self-preservation rather than avoidance. According to Jung, toxic individuals often rely on social conditioning to keep you involved in unhealthy patterns. They depend on your politeness, your desire to help, or your fear of conflict. When you prioritize psychological well-being over social expectations, you break these unconscious agreements. This response also reflects what Jung called active imagination, the ability to envision better uses of your time and energy. Instead of remaining in circular dialogue, you redirect your psychological resources toward more meaningful interactions. The strength of this phrase lies in personal ownership. You are not declaring the other person wrong, you are affirming yourself. Jung maintained that authentic power comes from self-determination, not from controlling others. You are exercising your right to decide how your energy is spent. Carl Jung noted that people often resist ending unproductive conversations because they fear missing something important or hurting feelings. Yet, continued involvement in harmful dynamics ultimately harms everyone by reinforcing unconscious patterns. This response applies across all relationships because it rests on universal principles. Whether addressing family who ignore boundaries, friends who complain without seeking solutions, or colleagues who repeat the same arguments, it remains effective. Here is Jung's deeper insight. When you consistently choose conversations that support growth, you naturally attract individuals who value meaningful dialogue. By refusing psychological waste, you create space for authentic connection. The long-term effect extends beyond single interactions. Jung taught that honoring your psychological needs models healthy behavior for others. You show that prioritizing well-being does not require cruelty or selfishness. Remember, Carl Jung believed consciousness requires constant choice. Each moment invites movement toward authenticity or away from it. When conversations no longer support growth, withdrawing becomes an act of self-respect. This is not about being antisocial. It is about valuing the limited resource of your attention and energy. Sometimes the most constructive action is refusing to spend it on interactions that benefit no one. Carl Jung devoted his career to understanding human psychology, and his insights reveal a central truth. Your response to others shapes not only the immediate exchange, but your entire relationship with personal power. These 5 responses are not clever comebacks. They are psychological tools grounded in Jung's concepts of projection, boundaries, and individuation. When you apply them, you change more than how others treat you. You transform your relationship with yourself. Jung observed that many people live by reacting unconsciously to others' projections. They absorb drama, tolerate disrespect, and remain in conversations that drain their energy. Now you have something different: conscious choice. Jung found that authentic individuals share one key trait. They refuse to participate in dynamics that compromise their integrity. These responses provide that refusal in clear, actionable language. But here is the challenge Jung would present. Knowledge without action has no power. These responses only change your life when you use them. The question is not whether they work. Jung's psychological insights support their effectiveness. The real question is whether you value your peace more than others' comfort with your boundaries. Carl Jung said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart." These responses are clear vision put into practice. They are your guide from unconscious reaction to conscious response, from psychological victimhood to authentic empowerment. When you begin using these phrases, you will notice a shift. Toxic individuals will either respect your limits or distance themselves from you. Either result supports your well-being. I would like to hear from you. Which of these 5 responses feels most relevant to your situation? Have you used similar language before, and what happened? Share your experience in the comments below. Jung believed psychological insight gains strength when shared within a conscious community. Remember, every time you refuse disrespect, drama, or energy-draining dialogue, you are not only protecting yourself, you are helping create a standard of authentic communication. Your boundaries matter. Your energy matters. You matter. And now you have the tools to demonstrate it. Thank you for staying through this exploration. If you found value in today's discussion, consider subscribing to the channel and sharing this video with someone who may benefit. And if you would like to further support this work, you can leave a super thanks below. It is a simple gesture of appreciation, and it genuinely helps sustain the channel.